Hello YouTube! Been a while. So, after the recent announcement, or rather lack thereof, regarding Horizon 6, I decided to crawl out of my basement once more and deliver some educational shitpost in an attempt to keep this community from flatlining completely. Today's topic is simple. How good are you really at Forza Horizon 5? I'm sure many of you have asked yourself that question before, and today I'm here to help you find the answer because I've got not one, not two, not even three, but 10 different stages of skill that encapsulate every single player's skill level. Once you finish the video, comment below which level you found yourself in, and I will leave a nice and supportive reply. Level 1 is what I like to call the embryo, because as with the real organic counterpart, this describes the brand new to Forza player who downloaded the game this week and is still struggling to complete the tutorial.
How do you drift? How do you drift?
These guys have single-digit playtime, they're not yet accustomed to the game, its menus and physics.
Why is there 4 males and like 30 females?
And they have absolutely zero clue what assists are and how to turn them on or off. But worst of all, they actually listen to the NPC dialogues and think they're good and immersive.
Well, if you like big news, wait till you see the superstar driver up in lights and the horn.
This is me right here. I'm the superstar, mate.
There's not really much to say here, just your average Joe who just stumbled upon the game a few days prior. The next tier is the novice player. This is quite possibly the biggest jump in skill and overall game sense between any two consecutive levels. Many improvements across the board can be immediately noticed. Once, they're now used to the game menus and mechanics.
Nathan says the gas is the right trigger. Thank you, Nathan.
So much so that they upgrade every car in the garage with maximum upgrades. But only when they're not too lazy and decide to slap a pristine 5-star rated Ugrandi tune, commonly acknowledged as the peak of technology. Their driving skills are also clearly improved, as some of these specimens actually remembered that brakes exist.
The brakes.
Can't wait for the rest of them to make this breakthrough.
Die in a fucking fire.
Now, typically, this level refers to the double-digit playtime folks who only do solo races and struggle to find every skill board and 3-star PR stunt. Can't really blame them for completing what the game has to offer, so we'll check up on them in a bit.
12 seconds later.
And by a bit, I mean right now, because at tier 3 we have what I like to call the average PS5 player. Now, keep in mind, I'm writing the script roughly 2 months after Horizon 5 was released on PlayStation, so if you watch this in the future, there's a good chance these people will move up a tier or 2. But for now, I think the skill level embodies them perfectly. These are the players hovering just around the 100-hour playtime mark, who have finished all the campaign races some time ago and have recently set their difficulty to expert, thinking that the name really reflects their current skill level. I mean, how could it not? After all, they already figured out that they don't need traction control and stability control for every single car, and about half of them use the brakes. Hell, even without locking up occasionally. This is also the first tier to discover there's more to the game than just solo mode, and I've started to dabble with some of the online features. But as a result, they also make up about 90% of the people complaining about the difficulty of the trial every week, usually on Reddit or in Forza's official Discord. And who can forget the average pro stock only free room dragsters who will impatiently wait for anyone to line up with them at the drag strip, only to dust them in their very fair and not overpowered vehicle. Oh, you lost in a clearly slower car? I'm just better, bro. And now we have finally made it to the average player, the likes of which make up about 80 to 90% of the currently active player base. These people have a couple hundred hours in the game, and I know some of you may think that's too much time to dump into a game just to be considered average, but hear me out. So, Horizon 5 has been out for almost 4 years already, which is actually so long that a handful of people have already reached its max level through legitimate means, mostly just grinding online races and rivals. Not only that, but Horizon as a series is about 13 years old at this point, meaning the skill range is being stretched a bit by the veterans who brought the overall average higher due to their experience transferred from previous titles. In other words, in order to compete with someone with 100 hours in Horizon 5, but 500 hours from Horizons 3 and 4, You are definitely at a disadvantage if you only have about 100 hours in Horizon 5 yourself. But then again, it's hardly like there's any actual competition to be had at this level, as most of these people kind of lost motivation and only really play on Thursdays to complete their seasonal playlist. But not after they spend 3 hours sniping rare cars on the auction house for a profit to satisfy their gambling addiction. A lot of these people often find themselves in a very pristine content creator club, 99% of which are just knockoff versions of AR12. And to show off the club tag the finest way you can, they abuse meta as much as humanly possible. Because at the end of the day, the point of a race is to win, right? This is also a good representative for the average enthusiast and AR12 viewer who just got out of the lobotomy room. No, the skill issue joke was never funny, shut your... Next up is level 5, which is the appropriate next step on the ladder that I simply entitled as above average. Creative, I know. Not much to say here, honestly. It's mostly just an upgrade over the average player in most areas. If I had to guess, being above average these days means you have about 3 to 500-ish hours in the game. At this point, one would have a basic understanding of how tuning works, along with being familiar with the vast majority of rivals and online meta. Top 1000 is now the norm, not the goal, and their interests are now piqued by people like Hoki Hoshi and Johnson Racing, as opposed to the slop factories. Now, this is usually where the tree of life splits, and people start to discover their niches in this game, and dedicate most of their time to them. Most people just stick to the basics and farm the playlist cars, which then they use in online races. Others take a less conventional approach and start a drifting career, which will inevitably end in either a hard drug addiction, or even worse, ending up in CDF.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Others use their artistic talents to become livery merchants. Seriously, if you have this much talent, why are you playing this stupid game? Go do something productive with your life. And lastly, a moment of silence for those who fell down the wrong path and dedicated their time to Satan's most efficient booby trap. Honestly, naming this level kinda stumped me for a little. I couldn't think of anything funny, nor anything that describes this tier beyond just a generally not bad player. This is pretty much your classic, I'm not great, but still pretty good at the game type player. Attributes include having just around 1,000 hours in playtime. Most likely possesses experience from previous titles that carried skill over. Plays online adventure a lot, and knows most of the tracks pretty well. Massive purist connoisseur.
Racing. Purist build, not try hard. Let's go front arrow. Let's go rear arrow.
Or in the case of drifters, big rear wheel drive elitist. Able to get top 100 on most leaderboards with relative ease. Probably part of some community, either on Discord or other platform. Knows the meta for most of the stuff in the game, including outside of the racing and rival sphere. And experiments with personal tech, but is still a regular customer of the good tuners in the game. This is likely where AR12 Nick would end up, at least if he focused more on getting better at the game rather than brain rot content.
Introducing Mr. Skill Issue.
Shut the fuck up, you nasty bitch. I don't know how to fucking...
Next is lucky number 7. This tier was originally going to be called Strong, but I feel like that's too vague, so I just switched it to the title Fast. And truly, this is where you can start to consider yourself a fast player, because from this point on, someone level 7 and above doesn't really suck at the game even in their least practiced areas. These people are able to get top 10 or 20 on most leaderboards if they try hard enough. They have a pretty solid understanding of tuning and rely on their setups most of the time, and even start to incorporate high-end strategies and optimizations for pace that the fastest players in the game use, such as low graphics, high FPS, close chase cam, etc. And if they've been around for a while, chances are they've even held a world record at one point or another. In fact, this is probably where I would place both Dubs and Don John Song. At his best, DJS might be a tier higher, but he has a massive lack of recent feats to indicate that, so don't get too mad at me in the comments. But Dubs is definitely around this level, he just doesn't try hard enough. And speaking of the next level, at number 8 we have Veteran. By now we're only talking about 0.01% of the entire Forza player base.
He was right about one thing. I am that
Forza Horizon 5 player.
10,000.
And to get here, one would need to have years of playtime under their belt. This is also where I would place myself, to be honest. I feel like that's fair. Others you may recognize on the channel to fit in this tier are probably Shark and Steven. Attributes include being fast enough to get world record on uncontested leaderboards, usually part of a widely recognized club or community, and usually very solid at tuning, but still not their strong suit necessarily. And also, most likely retired at this point. We love a good sleep until Horizon 6 comes out, don't we? Alright, we're getting very close to the top. At tier 9, I'm putting the aliens. This term is pretty common in the competitive community, but for those unfamiliar, it describes someone that's so good they hardly seem human. These motherfuckers dominate any regular lobby they enter by several seconds per lap, while flexing their near max level they got from sweating the game for 4 years. They are masters at tuning and use that knowledge to take even contested world records for themselves with incredible consistency. Pretty much all these people are either in Team Wars or a Chinese club, and even their weakest suits are far above what the average player is able to achieve. So okay, I've glazed the aliens quite a bit, sure, but you may be wondering, what could possibly be above this tier? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you level 10, the average British male.
Wait, I need to do the gaming.
Oh no, I forgot you were British.
Yeah.
No, seriously, when I was counting up in my head who would top this list, every name I got was a British bloke. Now, obviously, it's not exclusively Brits. I can think of a few more names to finish off this tier.
Ammo Gus Sus?
But it's funny how at least half of Forza's pinnacle of pace and performance is just the average British man. Regardless, this is what the top looks like. These people pretty much transcend Forza, as it's usually not even their main game of choice. Some come from motorsport, others main Assetto Corsa, and others even Call of Duty. We're talking about a decade of racing game experience, and mainly sims or simcades such as Forza. You'll find these specimens mostly rocking an ESV or K1Z tag in their name, or the 1% club tag. The most defining characteristic here is being able to get very close to the human limit on combos they dedicate enough time to. And I mean really close, we're talking a frame or two of the absolute limit. But of course, when they don't and only reach as far as 2/10 of the human limit, naturally that's a shit lap. Dog shit even. And if you think otherwise, you're also dog shit. But anyway, that's the list. Hope you all enjoyed. If you end up in a higher tier, comment it below and make sure to bully those with a lower tier. You have my blessing on that. See you all in 2028. I don't know.
I don't like your peaches, they are full of stones. I like bananas because they have no bones. Don't give me tomatoes and sand ice cream cones. I like bananas because they have no bones. No matter where I go, with Susie, May, or Anna, I want the